The security camera footage went viral within hours. A young man in designer clothes, stepping out of a luxury sports car, approaching an elderly veteran selling handmade wooden flags outside a grocery store. Words exchanged. Then, without warning, the young man's hand swept across the veteran's table, sending merchandise crashing to the pavement. When the old man tried to stand, a violent shove sent him stumbling backward, his head striking the brick wall with a sickening crack. His name was Marcus Webb, 24 years old, son of State Senator Richard Webb, and he believed he was untouchable. The victim was Harold Mitchell, 78, a decorated Korean War veteran who had lived in Millbrook County for over 50 years. Everyone knew Harold. He volunteered at the VA hospital, mentored troubled youth, and spent his mornings crafting American flags from reclaimed wood to raise money for homeless veterans. His kind eyes and gentle smile were fixtures at the town square. That Tuesday afternoon in October, witnesses said Marcus had parked illegally in a handicapped spot. When Harold politely pointed this out, Marcus exploded. "Do you know who my father is?" Marcus had shouted, loud enough for a dozen shoppers to hear. "Son, I don't care if your father is the president," Harold replied calmly. "This spot is for people who need it." What happened next was captured on multiple phones. The shove. Harold's body hitting the wall. Blood trickling from his temple. Marcus climbing back into his car, laughing as he sped away, nearly hitting a mother with a stroller. The paramedics found Harold conscious but disoriented. Fractured skull. Severe concussion. Bruised ribs. At 78, injuries like these could be life-threatening. By evening, the videos had millions of views. The hashtag Justice for Harold was trending. News vans lined up outside the hospital. Community members organized vigils. Veterans groups demanded accountability. The pressure on law enforcement became overwhelming. Even Senator Webb's political allies began distancing themselves. Campaign donors pulled funding. Colleagues refused to comment. The Senate Majority Leader issued a terse statement, "No one is above the law." 3 days later, Marcus Webb was arrested and charged with felony assault. His bail was set at $50,000, which his father paid immediately. Marcus posted a defiant selfie on social media with the caption, "All this over a parking spot. SMH." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following Monday before Judge Andrew Carver, a 30-year veteran of the bench known for his fairness and zero tolerance for disrespect. The entire town was watching. The courtroom would be packed. Media trucks were already setting up outside the courthouse. But a revelation unexpected was about to change everything in that courtroom. Monday morning arrived with an electric tension hanging over the Millbrook County Courthouse. By 7 a.m., the line to enter courtroom 4 stretched around the block. Veterans in uniform. Community members holding signs. Journalists jostling for position. Sheriff's deputies added extra security, anticipating overflow crowds and potential disruptions. Inside, every seat was filled. People stood along the walls. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, with collective anger and anticipation. At 9 a.m. sharp, the bailiff's voice rang out, "All rise." The Honorable Judge Andrew Carver presiding. Judge Carver entered, a tall man in his late 60s with silver hair, sharp blue eyes, and the bearing of someone who had seen everything human nature could offer and still believed in justice. He settled into his chair, adjusted his reading glasses, and surveyed the courtroom with the calm authority of a man who had handled thousands of cases but treated each one as if it were the only one that mattered. "Please be seated," he said quietly. The room obeyed instantly. "Bailiff, please bring in the defendant." The side door opened, and Marcus Webb strolled in like he was arriving at a country club brunch. Designer suit. Expensive watch glinting under the fluorescent lights. A smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. His attorney, a slick corporate lawyer in a $3,000 suit, walked beside him, whispering last-minute instructions. Marcus slumped into his chair, legs spread wide, one arm draped over the back of his seat. He glanced around the courtroom with barely concealed contempt, making eye contact with some of the veterans in attendance and offering a slight, mocking nod. Judge Carver's expression didn't change, but those who knew him recognized the subtle tightening around his eyes. "Mr. Webb," the judge began, "do you understand the charges against you?" Marcus leaned toward his lawyer, whispered something, then addressed the judge directly. "Yeah, I understand them. I also understand this whole thing is ridiculous. The old guy should have minded his own business." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Judge Carver raised one hand, silencing the murmurs. "Mr. Webb, you will address this court with respect, or you will be held in contempt." "Do I make myself clear?" Marcus shrugged. "Sure, Your Honor." The title dripped with sarcasm. The prosecution presented their case methodically. Security footage. Witness testimony. Medical reports detailing Harold's injuries. Photos of Harold's bloodied face. Expert testimony about the severity of head trauma in elderly patients. Throughout it all, Marcus looked bored. He checked his phone twice until his attorney snatched it away. He yawned. He rolled his eyes when a witness described Harold's character and community service. Then Harold Mitchell was called to testify. The courtroom fell silent as the elderly veteran made his way to the witness stand, moving slowly, still bearing the visible marks of his injuries, a healing gash on his temple, bruises yellowing across his cheekbone. He wore his Korean War veteran cap and a simple button-down shirt. He was sworn in, and the prosecutor began her questions. "Mr. Mitchell, can you tell us in your own words what happened on October 15th? Harold's voice was steady, dignified. "I was selling my flags, same as I do every Tuesday. A young man parked in a handicapped spot. I simply mentioned it wasn't right. I wasn't angry or confrontational. Just trying to do the right thing." "And what was the defendant's response?" "He became very angry very quickly. Started cursing, saying his father was important, that I should know my place." Harold paused, his jaw tightening slightly. "I've been disrespected before. That didn't bother me much. But when he destroyed the flags I'd made, those were meant to honor fallen soldiers, and when he put his hands on me—" His voice caught slightly. "I'm 78 years old. I survived a war. I didn't think I'd be assaulted in my own hometown for asking someone to follow the rules." Several people in the gallery wiped their eyes. Marcus leaned over to his attorney and said, loud enough for nearby people to hear, "He's really milking this, isn't he?" Judge Carver's gaze snapped to Marcus like a laser. "Mr. Webb, one more comment and you'll spend the night in a cell contemplating your choices." "Do I make myself absolutely clear?" For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Marcus's face. "Yes, sir." But even that small concession seemed to annoy him. As the testimony continued, he muttered under his breath, shifted loudly in his chair, and maintained an expression of barely restrained contempt. The prosecutor finished. The defense attorney declined to cross-examine Harold, knowing any attack on the beloved veteran would only make things worse. Judge Carver leaned forward, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Mr. Webb, I've sat on this bench for 3 decades. I've seen defendants show remorse, denial, fear, anger, every human emotion you can imagine. But what I see from you is something that troubles me deeply. You appear to believe that this proceeding is beneath you. That Mr. Mitchell somehow deserved what happened to him. That your family connections will insulate you from consequences." Marcus started to respond, but Judge Carver raised a hand. "I'm not finished. You assaulted a man old enough to be your grandfather. A decorated veteran. A pillar of this community. And you show no remorse whatsoever. That tells me." And then someone stood up in the back of the courtroom. The movement in the back row drew every eye in the courtroom. A man in his late 50s rose slowly from his seat, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing not a politician's suit but a simple gray jacket and tie. His face was weathered with lines of stress and sleepless nights. His eyes, red-rimmed, fixed on his son with an expression of profound anguish. State Senator Richard Webb had been sitting there the entire time, hidden among the spectators, watching his son destroy himself. Judge Carver recognized him immediately. "Senator Webb, I didn't realize you were present." "I asked not to be announced, Your Honor," Richard said, his voice hoarse. "I wanted to see. I needed to see this for myself without anyone knowing I was here." Marcus's head snapped around, his arrogance cracking. "Dad? What are you?" "Sit down, Marcus." The command in Richard's voice was absolute. Marcus obeyed. Judge Carver studied the senator for a long moment. "Senator Webb, you're not required to testify. This is your son's hearing." "I know, Your Honor, but I'm asking permission to address the court." Richard's hands trembled slightly. "Please." Judge Carver nodded. "Approach the bench." Richard walked down the center aisle, and with each step, his shoulders seemed to bear a heavier weight. He took the witness stand without needing to be sworn in. This wasn't formal testimony, but something else entirely. "Your Honor," Richard began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to start by apologizing to Mr. Mitchell." He turned to face Harold, and tears filled his eyes. "Sir, I am so deeply sorry for what my son did to you. There is no excuse. None. What he did was cruel, cowardly, and beneath contempt. You are a hero. You served this country with honor. You've spent your life giving back to this community. And my son hurt you because you asked him to do the right thing." Harold nodded slowly, his own eyes glistening. Richard turned back to Judge Carver. "Your Honor, I've spent the last week wrestling with what to do. I've had calls from colleagues, political advisers, even the governor, all suggesting ways to minimize this situation. To protect my son. To protect my career." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear breathing. "I've been a coward most of Marcus's life," Richard continued, his voice breaking. "His mother died when he was 12. I buried myself in work, in politics, in anything but being a father. I gave him money instead of time. I made excuses for his behavior instead of holding him accountable. I let him believe that our family name meant he was above the rules that govern everyone else." Marcus sat frozen, staring at his father with wide eyes. "I failed him," Richard said. "I failed as a father. And because of my failures, he became someone who could hurt an innocent man and feel no remorse. That's on me." Judge Carver leaned back, his expression unreadable. "But, Your Honor, I'm here today to say something that will probably cost me my career, and I don't care." Richard's voice grew stronger. "I am not asking for leniency for my son. I am not asking you to consider his age or his background or his potential. I'm asking you to do exactly what you would do for any other defendant who showed this level of arrogance and lack of remorse." Gasps erupted throughout the courtroom. Marcus's attorney looked stricken. "Dad, what are you?" Marcus started to stand. "Sit down." Richard's voice cracked like thunder. Marcus collapsed back into his chair. "Your Honor, my son needs to learn what I failed to teach him, that actions have consequences. That wealth and connections don't put you above basic human decency. That hurting someone weaker than you makes you the lowest kind of coward." Richard wiped his eyes. "I love my son. God help me, I love him more than anything in this world. But I will not protect him from the consequences of his choices. Not this time. Not ever again." He looked directly at Marcus now. "Son, I failed you. But I won't fail you again by letting you continue down this path. Judge Carver, Please give him the sentence he deserves. Be as firm as the law allows. Maybe it's not too late for him to become the man he should have been all along." Marcus's face crumbled. The arrogance, the smirk, the contempt, all of it shattered in an instant. Tears streamed down his face as the reality of his situation finally, truly, hit him. "Dad, Dad, I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm so sorry." Richard closed his eyes, tears running freely now. "I know, son. I know. But sorry isn't enough anymore." Judge Carver removed his glasses, pinched the bridge of his nose, and was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with emotion. "Senator Webb, what you just did took more courage than most people will ever need in their lifetime. Thank you for your honesty." He replaced his glasses. "This court will recess for 1 hour while I consider sentencing. Mr. Webb, I suggest you use this time to think very carefully about the man you want to be when you leave this courtroom." The bailiff called for everyone to rise as Judge Carver exited. In the chaos that followed, Richard walked to his son. Marcus stood on shaking legs, and for the first time in years, father and son embraced. Marcus sobbing into his father's shoulder while the cameras flashed and the world watched a young man's arrogance finally break under the weight of accountability and love. 1 hour later, Judge Carver returned to a courtroom that somehow felt different. The anger had transformed into something else. Anticipation. Hope, perhaps, that justice might also include redemption. "Mr. Webb, please stand." Marcus rose on unsteady legs, his eyes red, his expensive suit rumpled. His father sat in the front row now, visible to everyone, his face a mask of controlled emotion. Judge Carver looked at Marcus for a long moment before speaking. "Mr. Webb, I've been on this bench for 30 years. I've sentenced hundreds of defendants. Some showed remorse immediately. Some never did. Some learned from their mistakes. Others returned again and again until they destroyed their lives completely." He paused, letting the words sink in. "An hour ago, you were on a path toward becoming one of the latter. You were arrogant, dismissive, and cruel. You showed contempt for your victim, for this court, and frankly, for yourself. But something changed in this courtroom today. Your father's courage gave you a gift, the gift of seeing yourself clearly, perhaps for the first time in your life." Marcus nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. "However," Judge Carver's voice hardened, "understanding what you've done wrong doesn't erase the harm you caused. Mr. Mitchell could have died. At his age, a head injury is potentially fatal. You traumatized him. You violated his dignity. You destroyed property that represented his love for this country and for fallen soldiers." The judge opened a folder. "The law allows me significant discretion in sentencing. I could send you to prison for several years. Part of me believes you deserve that." Marcus's attorney tensed, but Marcus himself simply nodded, accepting whatever was coming. "Instead, I'm going to give you something harder than prison time. I'm going to give you the opportunity to earn redemption and the responsibility to prove you deserve it." Judge Carver read from his notes, "You are hereby sentenced to 18 months in county jail, with all but 60 days suspended, provided you complete the following conditions." He looked up, his eyes boring into Marcus. "First, you will serve 60 days in county jail immediately. No special treatment. You'll work in the kitchen, clean facilities, and experience what it's like to have your freedom taken away. Second, upon release, you will complete 2,000 hours of community service. Not at some cushy charity gala. You will work at the VA hospital, at homeless shelters, and at organizations serving veterans. You will hear their stories. You will serve them. You will learn what real heroism looks like. Third, you will issue a public apology to Mr. Mitchell, without excuses or qualifications, acknowledging exactly what you did and why it was wrong. Fourth, you will pay full restitution for Mr. Mitchell's medical bills, the destroyed merchandise, and $50,000 in punitive damages to be donated to veterans' charities in Mr. Mitchell's name. Fifth, you will attend weekly counseling sessions to address your entitled attitude and develop empathy. Sixth, you are prohibited from using social media for 1 year. Every word you speak will be face-to-face, where you must own it. Finally, if you complete all of this successfully, your felony conviction will be reduced to a misdemeanor. If you fail any condition, you will serve the full 18 months. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus whispered. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Judge Carver said. You'll earn every moment of the second chance you're being given. Before the bailiff could move, Senator Richard Webb stood. Your Honor, may I add something? Judge Carver nodded. Richard addressed the courtroom. Effective immediately, I'm resigning from the state Senate. I need to be a father, not a politician. Marcus, when you get out, you're coming to live with me. We're going to rebuild our relationship the right way. And son, his voice caught, your trust fund is gone. Your credit cards are canceled. Your car is being sold. You'll work for every dollar you earn from now on. Marcus looked at his father and, for the first time in the entire proceeding, smiled, a genuine, grateful smile. Okay, Dad. Thank you. Judge Carver turned to Harold Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, the court recognizes that no sentence can undo what happened to you. Would you like to address the defendant? Harold stood slowly, steadying himself on his cane. He shuffled to the center of the courtroom and faced Marcus. Young man, you hurt me. You scared me. For a few minutes that day, you made me wonder if the world I fought for still had any decency left in it. Marcus lowered his head, shame written across every feature. But today, Harold continued, his voice growing stronger, I saw something I didn't expect. I saw a father love his son enough to let him fall. I saw a young man's pride finally break and let something better emerge. I don't know if you'll follow through. I don't know if you'll become the man you could be. But I'm going to believe you will. Harold stepped closer. I forgive you, Marcus. Not because you deserve it, you don't, not yet. But because holding on to anger would only hurt me more. You want to earn my forgiveness? Then spend the rest of your life being the kind of man who would never do what you did. Help people weaker than yourself instead of hurting them. Use whatever privileges you have to lift others up. Become someone your father can be proud of. Harold extended his weathered hand. Marcus stared at it for a moment, then took it gently, carefully, as if it were made of glass. I will, sir. I promise you, I will. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Carver, for once, let it continue for several seconds before gaveling for order. Mr. Webb, the bailiff will take you into custody now. Your 60 days starts today. Use it wisely. As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, he turned back one last time to his father. Richard Webb placed his hand over his heart, and Marcus did the same, a silent promise between them. Epilogue. 8 months later. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the VA hospital's recreation room. Marcus Webb, wearing simple jeans and a volunteer T-shirt, was helping an 85-year-old Vietnam veteran named Charlie assemble a wheelchair ramp in the woodshop. Little more to the left, Charlie instructed. There you go, son. Marcus smiled, a different smile than before, one that touched his eyes. Like this, Charlie? Perfect. You're getting good at this. Marcus had been volunteering at the hospital for 6 months, 5 days a week. The arrogant young man who had walked into that courtroom was gone, replaced by someone quieter, humbler, harder working. He'd learned the names of every veteran he served. He listened to their stories. He pushed wheelchairs, read letters, organized activities, and did whatever was needed without complaint. The other volunteers had been skeptical at first. They'd seen the videos, read the news. But Marcus never made excuses. He simply showed up every single day and worked. Harold Mitchell visited the hospital weekly to run his flag-making workshop. He and Marcus had developed a careful friendship built on consistency rather than words. Marcus had attended every single workshop, learning the craft, helping Harold with the physical tasks that were harder for him now. "Marcus," Harold called from across the room. "Can you help me with something?" Marcus excused himself and walked over. Harold gestured to a box of finished flags. "These are going to the military cemetery for Memorial Day. I was wondering." Harold paused, measuring his words. "I was wondering if you'd like to help me place them on the graves. It's early Monday morning, 6 a.m. I know that's your day off." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'd be honored, Mr. Mitchell." Harold smiled. "Harold. Call me Harold." "Harold," Marcus repeated, the name carrying weight and meaning. That evening, Marcus sat in his father's modest apartment. Richard had downsized after resigning from the Senate, taking a job teaching civics at the local community college. They'd had dinner together, a simple meal that Richard had cooked. "How was your day?" Richard asked, washing dishes while Marcus dried. "Good. Hard. I helped build a ramp, organized a bingo game, and spent an hour listening to a World War II veteran tell me about landing on Omaha Beach." Marcus set down a plate. "Dad, do you know what he said at the end?" "He thanked me. Said young people like me give him hope for the country." Richard's eyes glistened. "That's because you do, son." "I don't know about that," Marcus said quietly. "But I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying to be better than I was." "That's all any of us can do," Richard replied, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. Marcus looked at his reflection in the kitchen window, not the designer clothes and expensive watch, but worn jeans, a volunteer T-shirt, and hands calloused from honest work. He barely recognized himself. And that was exactly the point.